Enter the bureaucrats, the true rulers of the republic. That is where our President Trump's trench will disappear. Well, wanted to start my today's comment with this altered Star Wars comment because it really feels like a strange déjà vu of Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. Only that Trump, who has been supposed to be Palpatine, especially in the view of his enemies, has actually become more like Chancellor Valorum, someone who does not see the signs of the time. And the phrase that we all have in our minds still is drain the swamp. And what you have to know about modern societies or modern countries is that indeed the bureaucracy, the bureaucrats, the technocrats, the unelected are generally those who have the greatest say. Now, I don't want to bore you here with the details to prove why this is so. It is my view after following politics, for which I have hints and reasons to believe, and it is really not such a secret if you be true, because historians, social scientists for generations have elaborated about the overwhelming importance of the bureaucracy in government in any modern society. But I think the point that we have reached in our days, in our modern days, is that we realize that the bureaucratic, technocratic, deep state sector, the deep state, has become such a powerful force that even in the most trivial parts, nothing can be moved in any direction. Before I start with Trump's Syrian blunder, which may well cost him the entirety of his presidency, to be honest, it may well be the beginning of the end. And even if that may sound overly dramatic to you now, I will give you my reasons later on, but I will start with another point first. I had supported Trump not because out of love or sympathy or any such reasons because he felt like such a great person to me. I supported him because I profoundly disliked the establishment. The established political class is a sort of dangerous and foolish class because they live in a political echo chamber and have lost all touch to the real needs of the people, and as such maneuvering our Western civilization into extremely dangerous directions. I wanted to see a real change. I wanted to see an outsider, someone who is not in the political arena for years and decades and deformed by this glasses through which regular politicians see every problem, but because he is an outsider, or so I was hoping, Trump would see things from a different angle. Because he would be a businessman, he would try negotiations. He would understand that a good deal is a deal where all sides win. That is a deal that lasts. And because he had this larger-than-life, strong-willed personality, which was at some times grotesque and not really nice, but because he had this larger-than-life ego, I believed he could withstand the lure of the bureaucrats and the technocrats at least for a good while. I understood that it would be difficult. But the reality is, in the internal politics, he has achieved zilch. Nothing. Now you can tell me 1,000 times, oh, but the courts stopped him. Some obscure judge in Hawaii was able to stop the president. Then all those things, I mean, I understand America is a republic, is a democratic system, and there are checks and balances, blah, blah, blah. I know this all. But if you create such a system of checks and balances, there is always ways to achieve something if you want. Like talk behind the scenes or do stuff. People can achieve things. And apparently many laws that Trump wrote or let other people write for him was formulated in ways that it was no chance in hell to get through. So apparently he did not understand how to negotiate with these people. Now, I don't entirely blame him for that, because it is an unfamiliar arena for him. He is usually used to deal with businessmen, and the businessman follows clear-cut profit desires. If I'm a businessman and I have a business and I make a deal with another businessman, I can understand this man's motivation is profit. It's clear, simple. In the political arena, the motivations are much more complicated and hidden. Some may be guided by ideology. Some may have some donors they don't need to disappoint. Some may have people obliged in whether elected or anything. There is a plethora of reasons, obscure, hidden, difficult to grasp. And then if you have a House of Representatives before you, like a Senate, Congress, you have such a great number of different individuals you have to gain for your side. That is not an easy task. So I wasn't outright mad at Trump for that. I was more let down, saddened, because my idealism in democracy itself has been, let's just be blunt, destroyed. Years ago, I was writing political texts with suggesting direct democracy, because the general idea I had that people would, even if they make foolish decisions now and then, they would learn from those foolish decisions and the people would get wiser. And now I know we don't have direct democracy neither in the United States nor in most Western countries, but the ongoings have deeply eroded and undermined my belief in democracy. I'm saying this all entirely bluntly. I mean, I understand the alternative is an Augustus, is a Caesar. I'm aware of this. But sometimes these days I wonder if we have not reached a state so complicated and so messed up in our entire Western democracies that all these complex democratic procedures are just no longer functioning. That's just a thought. But back to the Syrian blunder. The great Roman senator and lawyer Marcus Tullius Cicero, from over 2000 years ago, began his career in a murder trial where he was lawyer of one Sextus Roscius, and the trial he won against overwhelming odds made him famous with the question "Cui bono?" Who benefits? And ever since, the question has become a catchphrase, "Cui bono?" Who benefits? If you are looking at a complicated situation and you're not sure what is the truth, you look at it from the perspective of a Cicero and ask who benefits. The first point is, of course, the gas attack itself. Who would benefit from this? I mean, it has always been a rhetorical thing of the left to say that the other side are madmen. You've heard this about Hitler, said oftentimes, Hitler was a madman. And now Assad is a madman. So what do we know what he wants? Kraut from Kraut and Tea has said similar things in a debate just today, which really infuriated me. Like, we have no idea to guess or at least speculate on reasonable grounds, because while a person may be mad, first, true madness is a really rare thing, and a madman may not have logic, but he has reasons. He has a motivation. He has a goal. And such goals can be deducted. So madness is not an excuse to say we cannot understand the motivation of that person. We can. That is what the entire matter of psychology does. So even an Assad, which I do not understand why we should assume that he's a madman, but let's just leave this question aside. Even an Assad, even if he would be mad, he would have goals, he would have aims, he would have reasons, he would have something he wants, which can be deducted or can at least be guessed. Now you can say he enjoys horror, he enjoys suffering, and so what? But that is such a simplistic, foolish idea, because nothing that Assad has done has indicated that this is his prime motivation. He wants to stay in power, of course. That is what I understand, at almost any cost, also no doubt. But at this given point of time, what would he have gained from a gas attack, a chemical attack? The rebels in the north were in retreat and almost defeated. ISIS was at least held back. So there was nothing to profit at this time. And then just 2 days ago, President Trump said, we don't want to overthrow the government in Syria, and putting Assad out of office is no longer on our agenda. Now imagine you are the mad dictator Assad. You want to preserve your power and expand your power. And at that you hear that the great power of the world, America, says, we no longer are interested in a regime change in Syria. And the first thing you do the next day is start a chemical gas attack. I'm sorry, that is the most irrational reaction Assad could possibly do. Now, while I don't doubt that there are a lot of irrational mad people out there, no doubt, this is not something we can just assume out of the bat to make an easy excuse for bombing Syria, because, oh, he's a madman. Because seriously, if we bomb every place in the world where there is a madman in charge, I think the earth would be cried in rambles. They can bomb here, Berlin, where I live, right away, because when being ruled by madmen is an argument for bombing countries. So he would have nothing to gain. That's not to say that he didn't do it. Maybe he did. Maybe he is so clueless. But nothing that we know about him indicates that he is so clueless. Anyway, there are other people, other powers who would have to gain from such a thing, namely ISIS and the rebels. They had their backs to the wall in Syria. And they would have to gain a lot. Because if the Syrian army from Assad is attacked by America, the rebels gain strength and ISIS gains strength. Those are the two sides in the immediate area which benefit the most, or benefit at all. And we know quite well by now that the so-called rebels are nothing but just another variant of religious fanatics, most of them. So if the rebels win, or if ISIS wins, Syria becomes a nightmare of Muslim madness. And I am all for Bismarckian Realpolitik. We cannot act in politics as if we live in Daisy Wonderland, We have to act with the powers that are on the table. We have to deal with what we have, not what we dream we have. And if Stefan Molyneux has just made a video saying that, and I can in this case fully agree to him, if we learn anything from the last decades of politics in the Middle East, then that replacing dictators in hope to establish a wonderful, peaceful democracy is a shitty idea and never worked out. On the contrary, it always went worse after we removed those dictators. Always. On a scale of unbelievable magnitude. Now, of course, the question is on the topic of the United States. We know from tweets and speeches and sayings from Trump when he was still a candidate that he was fiercely opposed to ever attacking Syria because he was saying that's not our interest to make war in Syria and it's not our business. We have to focus on America, our forces, our money. We should not make more enemies, which is needless for us. And even if we attack Syria or anyone, it should be asked to the Congress, which Trump didn't do either. There was a time when the normal procedure, when there is the idea that there is a dictator, which is so evil that the countries of the world have to do something, then there was the idea, okay, we call together the United Nations, and the United Nations Council has to sanction this. This was the idea once. And even that was questionable because how much authority can an international group have to invade a country when there is no immediate connection? But at least that was as moral as such a thing even possibly can be made. You go to the Council of the United Nations. Now that was entirely abandoned. And then for the time it was a NATO decision that you consult NATO, that you say, hey, our allies, what do you think? Should we act here? And that was abandoned. And then at least the idea was, okay, we have to ask our own parliament. In the American case, the Congress. That is out of the window too. So Obama began this drone bombing where just he decided on daily basis, on daily mood, bomb here, bomb there, bomb this. And Hillary Clinton wanted to continue this, and this was one of the main reasons why people voted for Trump, and Donald Trump should know this better. So the question is, why does Trump do this? Because he has to benefit from this nothing. Nothing. A lot of supporters are already up in arms and drop any support for Trump. There are a few who try to keep the facade. They criticize him, but he does this and that. Good. One of the few who really publicly said, I'm out of the Trump train, was of the known people in the public was this Paul Joseph Watson, which I really respect that he was so clear about this when he twittered that I'm officially off the Trump train. Because this is not a small thing here. There are people are bombed, and if you go to war and bomb a place and risk an international involvement, you better have damn good reasons. And I don't see them. I just don't see them. And internally, I don't know what Trump hopes to gain. I know that all the wrong people are now applauding this in the United States of America. And the question is, what the fuck is wrong with this man? I mean, seriously. I mean, going back to my initial quote, enter the bureaucrats, it is my suspect, and I suspected this for a long time, that indeed the bureaucratic powers, the deep state powers, are the ones running our countries, by and large. And that counts for Germany just the same. I'm just quite sure that a character like Merkel is mostly a figurehead of deeper powers, of hidden interests, of bureaucrats, technocrats, however you want to call them, people who are not elected. Our Bavarian Prime Minister, Mr. Seehofer, once said this in an interview. It was in a very late night TV show, so maybe he felt he could once tell the truth. Said, those who decide are not elected, and those who are elected do not decide. And people were laughing it off a little bit, saying, oh, it's funny, Mr. Seehofer's remarks. And the probability may be that it is much more truer. And I am tired when smart as people like Kraut and T brush this off. There was a debate with this Romanian guy, I suppose. I'm sorry, he's from Southeastern Europe. I think he's a Romanian. And Computing Forever, and they had a discussion about this, and Kraut and T really disgraced himself by when we were saying, oh, there are globalist interests. And Kraut was just saying, oh, what globalists? And I was saying, yeah, where have you lived, under what rock for the last 30 years, Mr. Kraut? I mean, seriously, what globalists? I don't know of any globalists. I am tired of people brushing off these things as conspiracy theory. Yes, of course, I don't sit at a president's table. I can't listen to all the hushed secret conversations on the floors. What do I know? I'm just a regular guy sitting here speculating. I speculate about what I see. And nothing else makes sense at this point anymore. When someone goes with such furor, such conviction as Donald Trump, with such a big ego as Donald Trump, into an election, a man who has everything, who has riches, fame, whatever, who would not need something like a presidency, then I have to believe, even if I do not agree with everything he wants, at least he must be convinced of what he says. At least he must believe into his own sentences. Even if I say what he says is evil or I disagree with it, I would at least assume, okay, at least this man does it because he truly believes in the cause he speaks about. And if even such a man with such a powerful ego and willful personality can be put under by the bureaucracy in a mere 70 days, then the entire republic is a farce. Then our entire democracy is a charade, is a lie. Then there must be unseen other powers who actually call the shots. That is the only logical conclusion. Now you can speculate about this. Are these the international finance powers? Are these, I don't know, anything? You all have ideas in your mind who this may be. But there must be powers other than those elected if such a thing happens. That is the only logical conclusion from such ongoings. And I am sick and tired from people like Kraut always brushing off such speculations as, oh, this is speculative, we don't know these things, and those are conspiracy theories. No, these are bloody not conspiracy theories. Yes, they are speculations, but they are quite probable speculations if we take into account what transpired. Other than aliens mind-probing Trump and manipulating him, we must assume that there are political forces which altered his course. And these are unseen forces. Now you can call them globalists, you can call them anything you want. we can research about this and may have different views on what their agenda is, on what their motives are. What we must at this point assume that by all likelihood there is a sort of cabal, there is a sort of power behind politics which does not want what the people want, which breaks and undermines the democratic will systematically. That we have come to the point that it does no longer matter whom we vote for. If you vote Democrats in charge, if you vote Republicans in charge, no difference. And here in Germany, just the same. If we have a social democratic chancellor, Mr. Schulz, if we have continued Ms. Merkel, no difference. Okay, I see I'm already in minute 25, so I cut it short. It is really a day that will be long remembered, I'm sure, because Trump has lost so many of his supporters, and these are the people he would need, the people's backing. And if he loses that, he loses everything. He does not have support in the Republican Party. He does not have support in the Senate or the Congress. And all those who now yell huzzah from the Democratic Party, they will work tirelessly to remove him from office as soon as possible. They will not support him and side with him just because of that. And even the industrial military complex, who has his interest in having wars every one for their military profit, they will know that there are other politicians who do that more vividly and more passionately than Trump. The only power that Trump had was a popularity among his supporters. And what he done was not bomb Syria, he bombed his own supporter platform. Great job, Donald. Great job.